Okay, good. We are restreaming. Mute my sound. So in case you joined a moment ago and didn't hear what Kedra had mentioned about the mantra that's here in the chat, this is the name mantra of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and it has evolved with time. And this is the version that Geshe Sonam has received the transmission for. It's an earlier version, so it is slightly shorter than the one that appears in the most recent sadhanas that we'll be following in the afternoons. But it's the one that the Geshe Sonam received, so he'll be using that one, and we'll be using the one that's a little bit longer, some additional names added. We'll do that, or according to whoever is leading the puja. We might be using what's in the text, which is longer.
Geshe is teasing me because I have like 3 different malas on the floor, but you never know if one's going to break, right? So good to be prepared. So can everyone hear Geshe-la's voice as well as my voice? So he's greeting all the Dharma friends. Oh, kogidu-sa. So first of all, Tashi Dele, auspicious greetings, and he hopes that everything is going well for everybody. So then today we will be teaching on the Avalokiteshvara, the Chenrezi Guru Yoga practice, and this practice has components that are actually important for us at all times. So in particular, Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezi, he is the manifestation of the 3 times Buddhas, the 3 times enlightened beings, the compassion of all of those beings. He's the manifestation of that. So then we understand that he is the embodiment of these qualities of compassion and mercy. And also when we think a little bit about ourselves, so many of our problems or obstacles that we encounter is because of too little of these qualities of compassion and mercy. So because of a lack of those qualities, right, we see around us all of these problems that manifest. So the reason we practice this Avalokiteshvara mantra, Guru Yoga practice, is because in fact compassion is something that is so important. So we do this practice so that we can integrate compassion into our mind stream, into our consciousness at all times. So the name Chenrezi actually, first of all, we want to be able to accomplish the welfare of ourself, of others, of all sentient beings, right? And this actually connects to the name of Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezi, in Tibetan. So Chen is actually the honorific for eye. And so it means that his eyes are gazing upon beings at all times. They are always open. And so just like Chenrezi is able to keep that constant gaze and work for all sentient beings, we will not be able to achieve that same capacity until our body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of Avalokiteshvara. And to achieve that state of Cherezi, then we need to, of course, accumulate many causes and conditions, and it is for the purpose of assembling these conditions that we engage in this practice of the Avalokiteshvara Guru Yoga. So in terms of our practice of this Guru Yoga, why we need to do it, these are some of the main points. So then, with a happy mind, we will now commence the practice. So just a note here. What appears on page 5 is not recited traditionally. This is not recited. This is actually when His Holiness composes the text, he makes an oath to compose and then explains a little bit about the background of why this text was composed. But this is not recited. So Geshe-la will start on page 6. So another thing that Geshe-la wanted to note is, of course, in this particular practice, we see that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is specifically named. He's the figure that is visualized as the embodiment of all lamas. But of course, if we want to practice in connection with the Lama who has shown us great kindness, we can, of course, put our root Lama's name, his name in sort of that place, right? So it can be changed depending upon one's Lama. And this actually makes the practice really vast and beautiful and something that can benefit us with relationships with all our various teachers. And another facet of this practice of Guru Yoga is that if we practice it well, it actually creates a cause for our own longevity. So we'll begin on page 6. Sangye chedan sogi chenam lai jangchu bardu dani kyasu chi dagi jinso gibe senam gi jola penshir sangye jobar sho Sangye chedan sogi chenam la Janchu bardu dani kyasu chi dagi jinso gibe sonam gi jola penjir sangye jobasho. Inji Temachi. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my accumulations of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit living beings. Semjin Tomje Dewe Don. So we'll pause for a moment. So Geshe-la said, here we should take a moment with these practices of refuge and the mind generation of bodhicitta to really bring forth refuge and bodhicitta within our mind stream. So try to bring those forth in the mind. And as we do this, we can imagine that in the place in front of us is Arya Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezig.
Lama yudo ta kange ta ngo ka kene novel
And we can imagine that him as the jewel all in one, which is the aspect of Avalokiteshvara, but also in essence the Lama, the Yidam, and all the holy beings.
Ngarosu ngot in ro ri ju ge senje yozu ta ronke pamani zo shibe ro ri ju ge senje yozu mei no baje.
And then we can imagine slightly below at our level, on either side of us, our mother and father, our parents, and then behind them all the 6 types of sentient beings of samsara, but possessing human form.
Jibado deva niji kaze tatu shuto.
So we generate fear and faith as a cause of refuge, and also compassion for all these beings as a cause of the uncommon refuge.
소소 그 지혜신의 로아를 주게 생제 유주 샤슨 로아라 때는 디바숑와 아니 시레지가 그 수트에서 그 실라슈가 다 시레지가 샤고도 처송 선바 용슈 쳐서 자다 버스 주바슈 선바.
And think that from myself and all sentient beings going for refuge to Chenrezig, Arya Avalokiteshvara in this way, we are able to purify our negativities. We are able to receive Chenrezig's blessings of holy body, holy speech, and holy mind, and we are able to come under Chenrezig's protection. So the purification, receiving the blessings, and coming under the protection.
로아를 주게 생제 유주 다 대시 부스 주바 리피텐다 아니 타투기 시레지를 타다니 타투기 시레지 공부마토 바다 대시가 이 좀비토니 쇼지세.
So think, in order to really bring all of these 6 types of sentient beings to true and lasting happiness, I cannot do that in my current state. I must actualize, I must achieve the fully enlightened state of Chenrezig, Avalokiteshvara, so generate bodhicitta. I'm supposed to time the meditations today, apparently. Sorry. So we'll finish there. And so the next section of the sadhana is the meditation on the four immeasurables. And we can see these as an enhancing practice for the bodhicitta, like the water and the fertilizer that will help the bodhicitta to sprout. Semshin Tomshi Dewa Dan Dewe Gyudan Demba Joji Tomshi Dunge Dan Dunge Gi Gyudan Jawa Joji Semshin Tomshi Dunge Mebe Dewa Dan Midra Wa Joji Semshin Tomshi Nirin Chadan Nidan Jawe Tangyom Ra Neba Joji. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that knows no suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of attachment and hatred for those held close and distant. So the next part is to purify the place. So we will purify and visualize a very beautiful place. And then the next step is to fill that beautiful place with offerings and to recite verses so that those offerings increase exponentially. So why do we need to purify the place? Because we understand that the place is in the nature of samsara, and that samsaric places are by their nature sort of unclean. So then we are purifying that. Tangje dune saje da sema lazo me ba dan la de tanyam bendo ye rangjin jambo ne jo chi.
Diga saje to da saje kangala lo bendo ya ta lai pwe saje da wo chi se yares.
So we imagine that all of the ground of kind of this place or this world, it becomes the nature of Vaidurya, which is like blue sapphire, which is like a kind of a divine, a celestial substance.
Sema la su chini bat, sema la su me baton sere sado dola su pata nyoda su kitri ne me ba se yares.
So sema la su me padam, free of pebbles and so forth. So Geshe said free of pebbles, but also kind of any encumbrances that might make the ground uneven.
ta papa shere ji ta koro pwe shi runo le te pe ta ne pa su pachi.
Lagi. So we can imagine the place as a pure land, as the pure land of Chenrezi, of Avalokiteshvara, that is manifested through his mind of exalted wisdom.
Ta la do mai chewi ji ni su sho do yi ji zhe se la do mai ji che ba pa su zu ba ni su sho ba ta ka se ya yin ta yi ji zhe na ta ka se yin ta shu ya res
tes go again sorting also tambo kyon na yaga do aten ne jela
sho cha ma ra ta ne
ngazo kyon mas. So then we turn now to page number 7. La da mi ye je be je ngozo shanda ye ge zhe gunzang che jin la na me nam ge gang gun cha ju re chi.
인지 돈 가 말해.
May divine and human offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated, become clouds of the finest Samantabhadra offerings, filling the entire realm of space.
ta ngaro su ko de den de den pikoro normal nyal ta ji zo ga was de no ji la do mai chewi ji ni su sho do yi ji zhe se ni su sho ba ka ji yo ba yin. So then
Geshe-la said that when we invite guests over, right, we always make preparations. So here we are making preparations for the holy beings. So in this part of the practice, we have those offerings that we have actually set out. Those are the actually arranged offerings, but mainly it is the offerings emanated by mind, and those can be very, very vast. So Samantabhadra is mentioned here because, of course, all of the holy bodhisattvas, they are very expert in making offerings to the holy beings. But in terms of the practice of making offerings, it is said that Samantabhadra's offerings were the supreme from among the bodhisattvas.
어단도도 던디노라 요아래라 손주세마 근데 좀비 두간에 계제 빠도 매바티 계제 레지가 다 계제 두라 뭐 티주고 와스 델 타탈 요 손주세마 근데 좀 레레트 그런 노지 레지 관계는 다른 노버도 던디커 아까서라 다 델이 오체와 야저 두라 뭐
So Geshe-la is mentioning two possible ways that one could visualize this. One is that from the figure of Samantabhadra, from his heart, countless light rays emanate, and at the end of each of those light rays are countless offerings. The second way to visualize is that from the heart of Samantabhadra, countless light rays emanate. At the tip of each of those light rays is an emanation of Samantabhadra, holding a jewel and other offerings and so forth. So Geshe-la said that actually you can make this practice of visualizing these Samantabhadraings extremely, extremely vast. And how you do this is you have the first Samantabhadra emanating light rays, each which has a Samantabhadra. And from each of those Samantabhadras, they emanate light rays, each of which has another Samantabhadra. And then those emanate light rays which have further Samantabhadras which make offerings. And in this way, one fills all of space with offerings. And there's also different texts that say we can imagine that these emanated bodhisattvas have many heads and have many hands, and in this way are able to make praises and make uncountable offerings. So also we understand that we can imagine that we are offering up anything that is pleasing or beautiful in the world, right? We're not limited by our finances, so there's no saying that one is poor in terms of making offerings. We can offer anything that's beautiful that we see. So then we imagine that these offerings are in front of us and filling space. And so then the next one is the offering cloud mantra. So these are able to kind of purify those offerings, make them perfect, and also increase them, multiply them exponentially. So within the sutra tradition, in terms of the sutra tradition, the sort of very supreme dharani or incantation for purifying and multiplying offerings is this offering cloud mantra. There's nothing superior to this. Again? And Geshe-la thinks that this also holds true, that there is no supreme offering mantra for the three lower classes of Tantra. So for Kriya Action Tantra, for Yoga Tantra, and for Performance Tantra, this also holds that this is the supreme incantation. So in both Sutra and these three lower traditions of Tantra, this offering cloud mantra has great blessing. So we will recite this mantra 3 times. So normally you could ring a bell with this, but I don't think that would work so well with our sound. So just imagine a bell ringing if you like. Om Namo Bhagavate Benza Sava Pramadana Tathagataya Arahate Samya Sambuddhaya Tayata Om Benza Benza Maha Benza Maha Teja Benza Maha Vidya Benza Maha Bodhi Chitta Benza Maha Bodhi Mandoba Sakramana Benza Sava Kama Avarana Vishodana Benza Swaha Om Namo Bhagavate Benza Sava Pramadana Tathagataya Arahate Samya Sambuddhaya Tayata Om Benza Benza Maha Benza Maha Teja Benza Maha Vidya Benza Maha Bodhi Chitta Benza Maha Bodhi Mandoba Sakramana Benza Savakama Avarana Vishodana Benza Swaha Om Namo Bhagavata Benza Sava Pramadana Tathagataya Arahate Samya Sambuddhaya Tayata Om Benza Benza Maha Teja Benza Maha Vidya Benza Maha Bodhi Chitta Benza Maha Bodhi Mandoba Sakramana Benza Savakama Avarana Vishodana Benza Swaha. Denne kunjusum, tror jeg.
단데 Deto jeba, deto jeba, akosarwa.
Deto jebasana.
Deto jeba ngila ya te ngala chi joba te demba ina. Digende yunga shu seralevita.
So these are the words of truth, which says that if the words of the truth are the holy beings, may it become just like this.
Shonju semba tsa chimbo to ta tandi yun ngi ji le shonju se ngine te yoba ina. Sinde la tene ta page ma tu do mage do tandi taba shu sen chi re je ngine komendo ya tani yungu yare.
So Geshe-la said there are many stories in the scripture of similar words of a truth, whereas if it says that if this incantation is true, may this calamity, may this war, and so forth be pacified. And in actuality, when those words of truth were recited, they were pacified. So if you look in the scriptures, actually, there are many accounts of the amazing power of the various words of truth. So then think about this, and then with a sort of very vast motivation, we will recite these words of truth. Kunjo sungi dempa dang sangye dang jangche sempa tamche gi jinje la dang suni yonsu zobe nga dang chenpo dang chugi namba dashin sangi mi kyabe toki deshin du juchi. By the power of the truth of the three jewels, the blessings of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the great wealth of the completed two accumulations, and the force of the pure and inconceivable Dharma Dhatu, may all these offerings become suchness. So with the recitation of this words of truth, Geshe-la would like to expand this and imagine that through reciting these words of truth, all of the problems that are so evident in the world, the wars and conflicts that we see in the human realm, as well as the suffering of all 6 types of beings, are completely cleared away. So we'll continue, and so I'll try the easy tune for this. Hopefully this will be easy for people to follow. Deje nunju jogu kayin su na zo kunzang chechen chebe senge debe hewa no buje chege nye da jebe den den do Ninje techen bajo jiten wa namba ngome changwe de gachen Zawe lama sumden do jizin jizun lozan tenzin jatsobe Karma danse jebe zunze jen chaye duka cheche chagyayi leban raje zembe ge kada yomba nyanza zindon kolona Gugun dan den chugun nanzun dan so me se do penje zebe so pungan geje yuda yen la na ringa yab yun semba sema dang Zhoe rang jing gir go go lo zo nga nge je je be jo je mu ja ni mi je do je ge zhun zu gang de ge zhe zhang wei chen bu ge du ga ye xie sen ba chen re zi xia ji cha xi dang zhun te mo sha ma xie zhe be ma ka bu nam rin chen gen dan da gi na za zi Rida babe numa yunba gya da we lanzu pada ki zhu de yi tu ga ten zin zen ba ni ye kaze leze jojo lame ne sun doje sungi tse de ge la zhe Rajan chozo male chenjande tembe kyane kundu ngoro
Oh, yeah. Inji tong dek mara.
Inji nangla. So yeah, I guess Geshe-la said we should recite in English. I'll try to keep a pace because I want Geshe-la to have time to comment as well. In the spacious expanse of the spontaneous great bliss Dharmakaya, at the center of of clouds of Samantabhadra offerings, is a throne of radiant jewels supported by lions, on which is a seat of a lotus, sun, and full moon. On this is the supreme Avalokiteshvara, great treasury of compassion, manifesting in the form of a saffron-robed monk, my root guru, Vajra holder, possessing the three kindnesses, the glorious Jetsun Losang Tenzin Gyatso. With the radiant pink complexion, pleased and smiling, your right hand is at the heart in the mudra of expounding the Dharma, and holds a white lotus marked by a volume of scripture and a sword, while your left hand is in the mudra of meditative equipoise, and holds a 1,000-spoked wheel. You elegantly wear the 3 Dharma robes of lustrous saffron, and a pandit's hat the color of refined gold. Your aggregates, constituents, sense spheres, and their objects, as well as your limbs, are in the nature of the complete mandala circles of the fathers and mothers of the 5 families, the male and female bodhisattvas and the wrathful protectors. At the center of a sphere of assembled garlands of 5-colored lights, your 2 legs are in the indestructible Vajra posture, and you send forth heaps of clouds of magical nets for the sake of those to be subdued. At your heart is the exalted wisdom being, Avalokiteshvara, with 1 face and 4 arms, 1 pair with the palms joined together, and the lower pair holding a crystal mala and a white lotus. He is beautifully adorned with precious ornaments and silken robes. His left breast is covered with the skin of an antelope, and he is in the fullness of youth, sitting cross-legged on a lotus and moon. At his heart is the concentration being, the radiant white letter Hri, from which light rays radiate to the 10 directions. My Guru's 3 places are marked with the 3 Vajras. Light rays radiate from the letter Hum at his heart, and invite all the countless forms of the 3 jewels. By them dissolving into my Guru, he becomes, in nature, the embodiment of all objects of refuge.
Desoi. Ta le la bo chenan de no kala sono to janan de yare. Tangine chena to ni to be se ti ngone pa. De no ka don rawa sono to. Ti ngone se ta page kanga shawaji.
So there's 2 ways that we could begin the approach to the visualization. One is that we just imagine the figure of the Guru deity in the space in front of us. The other way is to take a little bit more time and imagine that first we meditate on emptiness. And from that mind that is focused on emptiness, the sphere of emptiness arises, and then within that appears the deity. So, of course, it's really important that when we say from the sphere of emptiness, right, we think from the sphere of emptiness, great bliss, wisdom, that from that is the place from where the deity and indeed all the offerings and the other things arise. So then, of course, that means that if we have no feeling for emptiness, that's really not okay in terms of having a full vision of the practice. Another thing that's important to mention here is that this meditation on emptiness acts as the antidote to the first of the 2 obscurations, the afflictive obscurations, and then the enhancing minds of love, compassion, and bodhicitta. These actually are acting as the antidote to the wisdom or the knowledge obscurations. So really, the most profound practice is this. And if we have this in place, then all of the other cultivations will come out well. And this is actually very important in all tantric practice, because without this preliminary meditation on emptiness, then, for example, arising as the deity or visualizing the deity, this could actually enhance our self-grasping rather than be an antidote. So then, just Geshe-la said not to say much, but just to go over the visualization. We imagine the very pure and even ground, and upon this, held up by 8 snow lions, is a beautiful jewel-encrusted throne. And then upon this beautiful jewel-encrusted throne, we have the 3 beautiful cushions of lotus, moon, and sun. And we can imagine seated upon that is the precious victor, right? Which is Gyawa Rinpoche, means His Holiness the Dalai Lama, right? And we can imagine him in his form seated upon that. And then in terms of how he kind of appears, it talks about a radiant pink complexion. Actually, the Tibetan is white-red, so a brilliant white-red complexion in a pleased and smiling aspect. And a saffron-robed monk, of course, these mean that his garments are those of a fully ordained bhikshu. And so my root guru, the Vajra holder, possessing the 3 kindnesses. What are these 3 kindnesses? Geshe-la will explain it from the perspective of Tantra today. And so those 3 kindnesses would be bestowing the abhisheka, the empowerment, teaching the Tantra itself, and providing essential instructions based upon that. So those are the 3 kindnesses.
So
if you wanted to think about this from the sutra perspective, you could think that the 3 kindnesses are bestowing the vows and commitments, giving explanations on those teachings, and then thirdly, bestowing essential or pith instructions. That's a sutric way of thinking about it. Loso. And so then, possessing the 3 kindnesses is the figure of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, seated as explained. And then we have his right hand in the mudra of expounding the Dharma Chishyagi. And then actually there's a stem in that Dharma preaching mudra, which goes upwards and connects to a beautiful lotus, upon which is a volume of scripture with a wisdom sword above it. And we can imagine that this symbolizes the hand in the teaching mudra with the lotus and the scripture on top of it, that the being is skilled in explaining all of the aspects of method and wisdom. So Geshe-la said very recently, His Holiness stated to us very clearly, with a different mudra, with the mudra of holding out his hand, that if we do the work, enlightenment is in our palm. And so the left hand is in the mudra of meditative equipoise and holds a 1,000-spoked wheel. So you can imagine that it's holding a beautiful Dharma wheel. If you are doing the practice for the longevity of His Holiness or of the Lama, instead you would imagine, instead of the wheel, there's a long life vase with nectar.
다 저도 콜로노나 다 저거 되더니 뭐다 야 거치서 마도바드 콜로 치치 콜로고니 다 유바드니 손도 도양 저거 알아왔어.
And holding a thousand-spoked reel, we can really imagine that this is also a request to the Lama to continuously turn the Dharma wheel until samsara has ended.
그건도 대치기 노서 단계라 잘해. 좀미센도 배자 하는 자 배자 날이 들어와. 세근도도 täm바.
Yeah, yeah. And so elegantly wearing the Dharma robes of lustrous saffron. Then you have the pandit's hat, which is that sort of pointed hat, and it's a beautiful golden color.
다 평고 현재 예도 열어노 링아야 이 삼바삼마도 조인로죠. 저거 콜로도 나게로 아니 예지 주비 거체 이 샤니도 좀 마셔도 제시 주지 군도 지르자이 주비제사 다 나로솔 평봉아 코트더니 코 조제사 요아레 코 주세아나 저거 요아레 아니 시제 유니사 더 요아레 대지 강가 알하도 라메가 넘바 요아링아가 넘바.
So then the aggregates, constituents, sense spheres, and their objects. So we can think of the 5 aggregates, the 18 constituents, the 12 sense spheres, and so forth. These are in the aspects of the Buddhas and their consorts. So we could also say the 5 dhyana Buddhas.
단델리라고 요만 델리지게 내서 상한티바도 가와이나 다 리지게 다네 라 리지 라게 바스는 내서 뭐뭐지 요아레스.
So actually this part of the practice is something that is very profound and not so easy to understand. It's in fact a type of a body mandala, and so this particular one with the sense spheres and so forth is connected to the teachings of Guhya Samaja, the Tantra of the Secret Assembly. And so Geshe said not really appropriate to comment on that extensively here, but perhaps in the future he can comment on this.
돈바리 자. 돈바리 자스 라자.
Laja, ale.
tani la nga,
Ale.
la sum, tomba ri ja, tomba ri nga, tomba ri sum, tomba ri ji, sen mama nyurtu ke yares.
And so there seems to be, from what I understood, what Geshe is saying, that there are 100 commitment deities, which can be then condensed into 5 commitment deities, which can be condensed into 3 commitment deities, which can be condensed into 1 commitment deities.
하고서 다 지도 되바이나 자와 도지 조지레스. 다 모르도 이나 다파 모르 자와 리 sum 리 nga, 아니 리 자신 파 모모도야 야res.
So if we go down to if we want to think of these in terms of form, the single one would be Vajradhara. And then we have 3 Dhyani Buddhas, and then we have the 5 Dhyani Buddhas that we all know, and then beyond that, this increases to 100.
저 가정만 뭐지 그거 살아봤어. 간조를 세네 소위 평보, 주지 평보, 소위 평보, 대지지 평보, 대제지 평보, nom바시비 평보 nga. 디토를 세자비가 아니 주인디 왔어.
So Geshe said he explained this a little bit in a previous teaching, that when we think about the aggregates, we think of the 5 of form, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness. And then Geshe said on top of that, the continuum, the mental continuum, can be posited for 6.
자와리 nga 자와리 주이데 덤보 세라냐 가르테니 지만도 되고 야레스 가르치나.
And those aggregates, and those 5 Dhyani Buddhas are connected to those 5 aggregates, or if you add the additional one to 6.
ngaro서 타마타마 세조데 자와도지 주고 뭐도 야레스.
And it is said that main mind, so not the consciousness, but that main mind or the continuum, this is what transforms into Gyalwa Dorjechang, into Vajradhara.
는 좋아 대시 셈바 레바 일하셔바는 나테 세중나테 자와리 나.
Yeah. And then the other 5, form, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness, these are transformed into those 5 Dhyani Buddhas.
다 텐로 토야 누구라 자로 뭐 제가 배 할레비 템보 지니 수수와스 나로서 강가 텐리 내스로 토야 돼. 손질로 토야 돼. 아니 센저로 제게서 정말로와 아세한테 가제 셀샤와인 더 니르니르로 두스.
And His Holiness the Dalai Lama explained yesterday evening what makes it possible for these transformations to happen. For example, for our 5 aggregates to become the nature of those 5 Dhyani Buddhas. The example that we can think about is that our mind is in the nature of pure luminosity, and the defilements, the afflictions are adventitious. They can be removed. His Holiness says the more that we become convinced of this, the closer to realization we become.
Nyamu or that the Kandiji in Origas about Rem, you was and to get a halibut and watching the Susan was.
So those afflictions, right? His Holiness stated those afflictions, they are not in the nature of pure luminosity. They are merely covering. He stated this very clearly.
Koroina, Takaze, Yaman go Japanese in the logic, the Saka, Sir Part,
And His Holiness also mentioned that every day, from day to day, meditating on this and becoming convinced of this, he has each day drawn closer and closer to an authentic experience of this.
Oh, think about in this one. Oh, that the Nijigata, Matisi, that tell it on this Samba, can't the Samba success at Kachimbo.
So, just to kind of contextualize this, right here we talk about the triple stacked being. So the Lama is the Lama Damtig Semparwa. So the visualization that we just completed of the Lama, this is the commitment being. And then we imagine at the heart of the Lama, the exalted wisdom being. So Geshe-la said that actually, ideally, we are visualizing this inside ourself. And so where do we visualize? We visualize at sort of the heart level of the central channel, which is kind of in the middle of our body, but more towards the back. And just to get a rough idea, we can develop a conviction it's between sort of the two shoulders. Yeah. So Geshe-la said that actually, I mean, if we really want to kind of visualize this central channel, I guess accurately, it would be sort of more towards the back of our body, but because that's very difficult, we actually usually visualize the central channel a little bit closer to the front of our body. And just a sort of Tibetan joke is like when a child asks, "Where are you?" right? You will usually point to the heart level of that central channel and say, "I am here." So it's very important. And so then within this central channel at the heart level of the of the Lama, not of oneself. I'm sorry I said that. Of the Lama. Sometimes I'm like, self-generation? No, it's not. So of the Lama, so at the place in front of you, is Avalokiteshvara with one face and 4 arms. And so then 2 of those hands are palms joined together in like a meditation posture, and then 2 of those hands are with the palms joined together in Anjali, and then the others are holding a crystal mala and a white lotus.
This one, Richi Jeto Tajan Nazar, the Pabi Namaya Matan, Ginazon de Nojita de Ginuamare, Dail no sos.
Namiche said that?
Oh, Tanojitunga de Ginola.
Ale.
Shot out the kitchen movement to us.
Loso. So Geshe-la so Geshe-la said that here it's a very simple visualization, not extensively giving all the sort of accoutrements that Avalokiteshvara normally possesses.
Namaya Baga, Dail no sos, Dail no so. And so
then when we go to page 10 and we come to this second verse on page 10, which is describing the 3 Vajras and the letter Hum, this is the Tingenzengi Semparwa. Sorry. Actually, the first verse where it mentions Shri, this is the beginning of the description of the Samadhi, or the concentration being. And so this triple stacked being, this is actually very important. It's a main component of the practice. So the commitment being of the Lama, the exalted wisdom being of Avalokiteshvara, and the concentration being of the Shri. And so then from the Ri, at the heart of Chenrezi, who is at the heart of the Lama, countless light rays are radiating.
tani lamine sala dojes oma a khon siyo bache.
And the Guru's 3 places are marked with the 3 Vajras. So the 3 Vajras, Geshe-la said, it's just another word for the letters Om at the crown, A at the throat, and Hum at the heart.
Ta hoi tene yo ge ze shu che tene ta ti se ga tene sun ji ton che ga tene ku su tu se ga shala kanga ge ze ga ne la chi chuma che.
And we imagine that from that letter Hum at the heart, all of the various Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, embodiments of the 3 jewels are invoked, and they dissolve into the Guru deity.
Ta te la ma tel si ta ma che.
And so they've dissolved into the Guru.
Ta tandi ga ta la ma samba se si ta ya te ta ngal le jo la bi ga tene shala che wa tene zi ji che wa ha ka sa wa sa ta nge du to tane chu ga nge to mo ga nge ma shala cha so pe ju po te to ba da bi ta pa ge.
So when we visualize the triple stacked being, we want to think that, in fact, that by visualizing the triple stacked being, this bestows more powerful blessings, this bestows swifter blessings, this bestows the blessings for all of the mundane and supramundane siddhis, or attainments.
Yeah.
So then Geshe-la would like you here to meditate on this triple stacked being, the form of the Lama, at the heart of the Lama, Chenrezi, and then the letter Ri.
Lama samba se lama ngi si koro pa si watching si ta ya ida shla nyawa no chinga to ta nyimo ro was lama.
So because of viewing this triple stacked being who has this aspect of the Lama with clarity and vividness, it is said that this brings swift blessings, right? Because the Lama is closer to us than other holy beings.
Ti tu ka yi do anu papa shirezi ani ota yi do koro pa si watching si ta ya ida shla chewa ota te.
So the Lama brings the swifter blessings. Then from clearly visualizing at the Lama's heart, the Yidam, Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezi, this in a very clear way, this bestows powerful blessings.
So ma non da ka tone ta so wa ta ho ta shla shwa yin ta so so chu ga nge to mo nge to ka ma to re so much.
As we visualize this being, develop the conviction that if I make sincere, single-pointed requests, I can definitely achieve the blessings to achieve all of the common and supreme siddhis, attainments.
So go zo shi pin do ar ju sen je yu zo le ta pa tandi lama se ba se ze ga to ne pa tu ni wo to ota ga ba ngoni ta yu yo so much.
We imagine that due to this visualization, praise, and requests, that the Lama deity, the Guru deity, manifests the aspect of being pleased with myself and all of the assembled sentient beings, the 6 types that we visualized. So we'll pause there. So we'll now go to the bottom of page 10, which is the 7-limb prayer. Sezo zembe zebe donjo go nyenje joju yanden ga mesu zayan genze baga ga wedu Sansu Gengi Kolo Guchazel Dabe Zunda Mazun Chebeze Ngesham Yizhe Dang Lang Dang Duzun Sabe Nanga Gezu Kun Zang Jin Jatsu Mine Mare Jibe Mage Yinembe Charangana Mate Didunzo Loba Jembe Nemba Jijiba Gedon Jabo Mime Nandusha Pede Lame Namba Darba Dan Desu Keba Rangen Tam Jegi Nduzu Namka Gewe Bumbola Nine Samba Tabe Jeram Nazo Deje Kange Jezo Me Tamje Kasu Laye Remeja Shaji Yanzu Jowe Yichen Shenyin Jebe Nyele Londo So Siji Muda Jawe Ngedola Drogen Dewe Yuje Madoba Shazu Ewa Mishi Kemoju Jome Doje Chila Tembajo Namka Leje Gida Gigogo Jezu Lame Jeme Jezu Je Gunzon Jeje Mela Yonjane Jogun Dundu Zojan Dojan Logo Tuesday Malorwa Yeah Logo Mara
Ota tiga tangi lama sembasa sita yorwa stati in the tere yala de gonu tsuso juche badres.
So I won't read the English this time so we can save more time for Geshe-la's comments. So Geshe said, having visualized the Lama and the triple stacked being, then the practice is making the 7-limb practice of offerings and so forth, to purify and accumulate merit.
당가로서 도자 버스 주바지 그냥 토바시아 발라 예니 메저 주사 바도 저바죠 니거도네 다야 공부하는 거 요아레스.
And we understand that in terms of what we are trying to achieve, that final goal, right, that this depends upon the accumulation of merits and the purification of obscurations. These are like two legs that allow us to approach that goal.
다 소소 같은 자 랭에 바 처음에 랭다 왔던 리나요 다 열어 더거도네 버게 하고서 와 듣는다 세나마도 열어 더거도네 바 템보체바이나 다 토픽 다 면서 요아레스.
So in the scriptures it talks about that even if one has accumulated one of the 5 uninterrupted karmas, one of the 5 heinous actions, that through the practice of the 7 limbs, or the tantric version, the 7 purities, it is possible even to clear away that negativity.
어떤 게 뭘로 저다 뭐 고사러 와서 와서 시티도 대지가 놀란도 와서 어다네 뭐 그자도 다 자주 뭐 세키가 다 맞지나요 어다 타마 걸어다 센조원 돈는 제바시네라 소소 저주 템보체 로주시 녀레시 발라테네 다와 팀바도 타와노지.
So the great Nagarjuna, he says that even if we take a being who has engaged in a serious negativities, for example, even killed hundreds and hundreds of beings, if on the basis of this 7-limb practice they engage sincerely in the practices of accumulation and purification, and in that way study the teachings, they are like the nimare daware nimarwa. They are like the moon that has been cleared of clouds.
rowa yin ta tene chapares.
And so Nagarjuna further explains that if one has been engaged really in evil actions, even of killing hundreds of beings because they lacked heedfulness, if later they bring forth heedfulness and mindfulness, they are like that moon where the clouds have been unobscured, have been removed.
Ngaros monche mata ka monche ta ma mochi kozara jimala ripa ina ma se tel kor ame kalala tene senji mobor kangite bare tene tama.
So we have examples of this, right? We can think of Lord Milarepa, right? Then his mother wanted him to avenge the injustices done against his family, and because of that he engaged in many negativities, but then he was able to purify and accumulate and eventually reach enlightenment in that same lifetime.
Ota soso ga ducha ta msen dele temba yo ne teji wo temba zo. One ota tema tong ta shewa tume isa tendele mombo yares.
And so as we engage in the practice of confession, we can think of maybe the heavy negative things that we might have done that we remember from this life, and we can also maybe think back that I have definitely done similar negative actions in previous lifetimes.
Ota jewa yo ke mobo benji richi yung do jewa ngine yo na. Jewa chibo ke peto man jewa yo na ta te jewa yo pi to ne ta jewa koro gewa ya pore. So it
is said that the mind of regret is not enough to complete the practice, right? The mind of regret, it is a source of merit. It is something that is excellent, but then having brought forth that regret, we want to complete the purification and the accumulation by doing the entire 7-limb practice.
It's the
same, right? Like if we think about ourselves when we engage in something negative and we're aware of that, right? And we have that regret, right? We can't just leave it at that regret. We need to harness the power of that regret and use it as an impetus to engage in practices like the 7 limbs. Otherwise, it's not of particularly powerful use. And of course, to enhance the practice of confession even more, we have the 4 opponent powers, which makes the confession and purification very complete. And so, of course, the making the offerings, it's an antidote to miserliness and a very vast accumulation of merit. Prostration, also a vast accumulation of merit. And in fact, it is said that prostration can actually be an antidote to chaksel wonyomong chatsong. And that and that the practice of confession is actually something that helps to diminish all the afflictions. So we think of the practice of prostration as mainly the antidote to pride, and the practice of offerings as mainly the antidote to miserliness. But confession in particular is said to be an antidote to all of the afflicted minds. Yeah. So if you just looking at the verse for confession, it states, "Because of my mind being suppressed by the veiling darkness of ignorance." So because of that ignorance, which is like a veil, right, which is something that prevents us from seeing clearly, we fall into 2 types of negative actions. And here it talks about the natural and the prescribed misdeeds. So these are 2 different types of negativity. So prescribed misdeeds is a category of negativity related to precepts or vows. So if we take precepts or vows not to do a certain thing, but then we transgress it and do it, that's a prescribed misdeed. But if you are doing something that, for example, harms a sentient being, even though one has not taken a vow, just doing that thing that harms the sentient being, for example, that would be a natural misdeed.
아까서와 카나마토와 알레 텐도 알파세죠 카놀라 라발라 보겐 신호요 바지라 카나마토.
So misdeed here has the Tibetan word kana matoa. And so you don't get that in the English at all. I'm sorry. Sometimes the etymology just doesn't work with the English words. But ka means mouth, right? It means mouth. And so Geshe-la said kana matoa means even just to hear about it uttered from the mouth is something scary. Kane labne jigbachik yongdi.
카네 라야라요 보게 신호요 바지라.
So even scary to talk about is kind of the word for misdeed here.
레오로 와서 인행 먼저 손을 또나 소소 보게 녀빠서 저차 손을 뒤 녀빠데 다 카네 라야라요 거 보게 고 자고 가르래서 키 강에 때가 마도 콜레가요 말와.
So yes, and that's true, right? When we mention a misdeed, when we say the word misdeed, that should be something that is difficult to utter, right? Because hearing about that, we know that those misdeeds are something that only leads to problems, that only leads to suffering.
다티 이시알레 열라 덤바티 다디 디스도 사이게. So
Geshe-la said we have tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, so he'll do more, he'll gloss the 7 limb practices more, but that was just a brief beginning overview of those 7 limb practices. So now we come to the mandala offering. Mandediro. Soji begi joshi Kunjo sunabo tunje wange jene dala jinji la duzo Guru Ratna Mandala kam niryatayami. So all of the purposes for which I have prayed for, may they be actualized through the power of this offering. So then, so then Geshe-la said that according to the sutra presentation, then we talk about the 7 limbs, one of which is the mandala. Mandala nangla nitsuduni. So there are 7 points within the mandala offering according to sutra. Sobudumpa, nitsudumpa lana. Somudumpa So there are 7 points to pay attention to with the mandala offering. And then also with the vaster mandalas, there is a mandala that was put forward by the great Sakya Lama, Chugyo Pagpa, Drogyen Chugyo Pagpa, and then there is also the the version of the mandala offering according to Lama Tsongkhapa.
어떤데 열었는 저기 초보 덤바스는 딥 디아레 나로서 리엔 노시에 게자도 집아 간가 로로 네츠 딜이야서 노토니 피기아레스.
So the 7-point mandala, this is actually thinking of all of the qualities of body, speech, and mind, as well as all of one's enjoyments and roots of virtue are thought of kind of as like 7 heaps ale pungdun daporedua and offered up.
다 40페이지 주제 매도죠. 사지간갈 매도to 디딘다
Yeah, yeah.
아니 리저
Ale.
리저
Yeah.
아니 레이자버라
So this ground appointed with perfume strewn with flowers adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents. So here one imagines that ground and so forth, and then one imagines Mount Meru surrounded by four main continents.
나레송아 리저 레이자버라 나지
So one counts the Mount Meru as one and the four continents as four. This brings one to 7 points.
라 리저 연은 니마도 다와
And then the sun and the moon.
디레송아
Yeah. And then with the sun and the moon, that's a total of 7. So this is a 7 heap or a 7-point mandala.
오타 리로시 게자도 지바칸가 로로타 디게 nombal에 와서노 돈이 다야 필요하래
So one imagines all of the virtues of one's body, speech, and mind, together with all of the enjoyments and roots of virtue, embodied beautifully as the beautiful ground with these 7 points, and offers that up.
오타 열어도 멘라도 지바 사데노 진간도 된로 사와레스
And so in this way, we have completed the 7 limbs and the mandala portion of the practice.
오야 달라만을 실라셔와데
And so the next one is receiving the blessing of the Guru. Jezu name tuge rile du ze nange gymbade arange choni je di je chong chodang enje male do
리소이
Oh, jeez.
오달라마 셈바세세 두기 쉐일레 테네 게제 빠다 메바룬 소소가 다 게 소소가 다 론도 센제 요주가 게데 소소가 시원마 수이데요 바치 소노토스
So one imagines here that lights emanate from the Sri at the heart of the Guru deity, and that from that the lights and nectars descend and they enter our crown, but also Geshe-la said the crown of all of the assembled sentient beings that we visualized, in this way purifying negativities and bestowing attainment.
근데 그 전에 다 저바에 노지 테네 게제 요바치 두는 메세 데체 게제 나가 바니 바 나로 소소제 롱we 야야는 도와리 주고 세제 요조 리치드와 나치드와 다 커버게 링와 예스거드와 강가 다 좀마지 송송바
So as one visualizes the lights and nectars descending, Geshe-la said initially we can imagine that both for ourselves and all sentient beings, the lights and nectar descends like a pipe that's being cleaned, with all of the negativity being pushed out. And then we can imagine that after this purification, the lights and nectars fill up oneself, bestowing all of the blessings of holy body, speech, and mind, clearing away all negativities and bestowing all attainment and realization.
로지 요조 리치강에 센제강에 간데 지나야 바 전부 주주 바 좀마서는 바
And in this way, we can imagine that all of the physical and mental suffering of both myself and others has been completely cleared away.
쇼바도 니지 쇼주 셀라스바다 거로 바자 니바 간디지연의 대지다야바 뭔바 야보시에송
I think through receiving these blessings, then imprints for love, compassion, and bodhicitta have not only been received, but those imprints have flourished and ripened.
라미 그수트스 소소를 다 바실런 준들라 파 어느 가와도 대와 땡데 대와 라부다 버게들이 무슨 소바 슈송 소바
Think in this way I have received the blessings of the holy body, holy speech, and holy mind of the Lama, of the Guru, and in this way an uncontrived joy and bliss manifests within my mind.
다 생각돼.
And so now we will recite the name mantra. So just as a note, we will be reciting the original version of this name mantra, which we have posted in the chat, not the version as it appears in the text.
뭐겠지 보장시대
그래서 ngak gi nesu ni duwa nesu thambo dirwa.
예.
Yeah. Om A Guru Vajradhara Vajendra Sumati Shasana Dara Samudra Shri Bhadra Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum. Om A Guru Benzadara Vajendra Sumati Shasana Dara Samudra Shri Bhadra Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum. Om A. So we'll just recite for 2 or 3 minutes on our own.
So ajmi nguna la mi tu kan de zege de kom baba noji chaba baba noji son to na go yares. So
As we recite the name mantra of the Guru, we should imagine lights and nectars like a continuous monsoon rain falling from the Guru deity to beings.
oya.
So we'll pause there.
Tate mi kale kawo ki mare mo cha ta ja mo chi ja wang ja ne ani ha ko sara ta ngo tong bo te om se na ku su tu so te chi ko je lima yu sa ro.
So in terms of this name mantra of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we can consider that the first syllable represents holy body, speech, and mind.
Om a tane om a khung se la tane ja ro mo chi me ti lu ja ba res.
And so then Om A and then
Ho te tamalan diwa.
Hum.
Ho tamalan diwa.
Yeah.
Om a ho so puara ti la.
Ale.
Ja ro mo chi me de ba ja ja ri.
So the easy way to think of this is we have Om A at the beginning and Hum at the end. So everything between those beginning and end points is reflecting the holy name qualities of His Holiness.
Benza dara sen benza seri doje dara sen doje chung. Jawa doje chung se ga res.
So Benza Dara. So Benza is Vajra. So the Tibetans it's Benza, but for us it's Vajra Dara. So Vajra Dara, right? The primordial Buddha.
Lama doje chung se ga lama rawas ti go.
So it's actually Guru Vajradhara, Lama Dorjichang.
Lama doje chung tani ngolo so tianzi jan so ngong se wakanda se ngong se ga res.
So Vagindra is one of the names of His Holiness Ngawang. It's the Sanskrit of Ngawang, powerful speech.
Samata se lozo.
Sumati is the Sanskrit version of Lozang.
Tani shasana dara se tianzi jan so yire ha.
And he-
Samanda se jan so.
And so Geshe thinks Shasana Dara, Samudra. Within those three is Tenzin Gyatso is reflected.
Ana shiri se pel se atre.
Shri means like glorious.
Heraka skasang mangan mo mo sai.
We always talk about Shri Heruka, right? Glorious Heruka. Here, so Shri is like glory, Pel.
Bata se zombo.
Bhadra is kindness.
Sawan thonche.
Sarva is all.
Sid se ngedu.
Siddhi is attainments.
Tumuga ngedu chuga ngedu te ko chuga.
And we can think attainments here is talking about both the common and supreme, or the mundane and the super mundane attainments.
O ta te manzero no so se atre.
So we can think when we recite this, please bestow all these upon me.
O tinti vache ti che. Ta deni mi za ta loro shago che atre.
And so then the next part, starting on page 15, it's like a prayer which is a glance meditation on the Lamrim.
Si tombo ti ga.
Oh.
This one. Si tombo ti ga.
Yeah. So the first verse is the precious. So the first verse is the way to rely upon the spiritual teacher. And then the second one is the precious human rebirth, difficult to find, as well as contemplating death and impermanence. And then the next one is dealing primarily with the small scope of the Lamrim. And the next one mainly dealing with the middle scope of the Lamrim. And then the next verse dealing mainly with the great scope of the Lamrim. And then the next one, the union of calm abiding and special insight, the union of shamatha and vipassana. The next one, to be able to enter into the path of Tantra. So that's the second verse from the bottom on 17, to enter into the path of Tantra and maintain the samayas or commitments. And the next one, to attain the resultant state of Vajradharahood. So we will recite these in Tibetan today. Cheda yungi dewa malube jigyo mano lamden jenje raja gyagi bumbo nye sanjo dabe denba jenje nojo jewe jemen dejo de tokyo mi de namdo jemebe dina jawe no yomi yengor damje jeba dawa jinjelo zekangen jele kyobe bo chosun dengi kyazu lezunde kana lende jishin senbai debon gejen ba jinjelo simol jishin lawange bunzo gungya lewe jijendu dongwe ngeje jabe jigene lapso nyanglen jeba jinjelo tome dune jengele gyambe siji gube nawe majejo angangso sone senjo rajede jeba jazo loba jenjelo arada nyeme nyanja melongo taje dene tongme ngozambo ngome jawe jela zunjegi najo gila jewa jenjela tsende doje zembe shenyengi jene jizangage gojone ngunju tsawa damsen dombana tsujin tsunga nuba jenjela nyeme dedo yeshe tsenengi gojele jo yuwara jene kujo sunjo de chen chagya je tsedang edo jowar chenjelo. So actually, this prayer of the stages is really reflecting the main practice, isn't it? And also, really reflecting, praying that one's mind can become inseparable from the mind of the Guru deity. Deta sowa ale nga so omani pemi hung trogarwa. Yeah. Omani pemi hungwa. Deta sowa tape. Ale. So actually, what Geshe-la is saying is that we actually recite starting on page 18 before Om Mani Padme Hum. So I know the instructions say that. It doesn't appear as that in the Tibetan text, by the way. So actually, we start reciting on page 18, and then we'll recite Om Mani Padme Hum. Deda sowa tabe lama cho gejin jende rangi sambuje dage nye mishi tilete deni la yang peda la mega Semba sumse nga shin se wa yi duge rita yidru nga chengi kole duze gyunba ne dendang dije gunja lundo yende saje gewe jina male do la yang zhene ji genjande nandra rizam babe sansanda kewe nanjo chula ne bajo. Oh, I see they do have it written here as well. Yes.
다 던지가 전에 라마 tel라서는 소와체치 뜻답이 되네 뒤에 tel라테네 라마티 튜지미 원에 담보치 소설 따는지 배그러 왔어.
So as we recite those verses, we imagine we make them with like a single pointed devoted request, and based upon that, then the visualized Lama draws nearer to us.
소설 저월 칠레 자소는 소소도 따쇼 타바이 파코네.
And when the Lama comes to our crown, actually, one important thing is that the Lama's holy face is facing the same direction as our face.
다 라메 자스 투니에지미 원에 소소가 자 마치 소야 보시 소노 또 되는 마 더 마치.
Slowly melting into the form of lights and so forth, and descending through the Tsauma, the central channel, to our heart chakra.
소소가 되니게 마시 비틀레테면 도피아만 나마지 바치 소노 또 되는 마.
And we imagine he dissolves into the indestructible drop at our heart, right? And we can also visualize a lotus and moon there.
다 던지가 라마테 자소소 니가려 알아. 와스 디 투가려 윤조 단에 템바서제 단계된 노시 소노소스.
And then that Lama is abiding on the lotus and moon at our heart level, and then from that, then we think about the triple stacked being, right? So the Lama, the deity, and the seed syllable. And around the concentration being, that three syllable is the six syllable mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. And we imagine that from that, there is a nectar and lights which emanate and purify and clear away all negativities of ourself and all beings. And we can imagine that actually those lights and the nectars, they fill gradually, every single abode, every single realm of samsara. And gradually, as those lights and nectars fill those abodes of samsara, they are transformed into the aspect of the Pure Land of Avalokiteshvara. So we can think that all of those environments are purified of negativities and transformed into the Pure Land, and also that through receiving the blessings of the holy body, speech, and mind of Avalokiteshvara in the form of lights and nectars, that all of the obscurations and so forth of sentient beings are cleared away. Yeah. So then we imagine that through that, oneself and all sentient beings are transformed into the aspect of Arya Avalokiteshvara. And so we imagine that all appearances are the appearance of Avalokiteshvara and his pure realms. All sounds are the sounds of the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra, and that all consciousness, all mind, is in the aspect of wisdom, realizing emptiness, great bliss, wisdom. Another way to think about this is every appearance is the appearance of the body, the Rupakaya of the deity. Every sound is the sound of the mantra, and all mind or consciousness is the aspect of the Dharmakaya, the truth body.
하가사라와 노트와 리서 세아데 오데데 트니친디와스
So that's the what to contemplate as we come to this part of the sadhana.
디스마 제 난조출라 네바죠 스타데는 거 야마는데 사르와
So just before we conclude, we will at least recite a little bit of the 6-syllable Om Mani Padme Hum mantra.
서시 요바지 오만의 뱀에 호소서 니갈 거라잖아요 요바지 다 텔레테는 매
Yeah. So, for example, we can imagine that around the Shri there at the heart is the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra. And if we like, we can visualize that this Om Mani Padme Hum mantra is kind of on fire within flames. This is the concentration abiding in fire. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme
So ngwa sabi che tela tini mei che ti ba lingwa yisa ga ta dipa de dwa kanga apa no shita.
So as we do this meditation, concentration, abiding in fire, we can imagine that as we recite the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, the visualized mantra is actually kind of covered in flames. And in this way, these flames are kind of burning through, purifying all of our negativities of body, speech, and mind. So just like rain falling on ice or butter melting, right, they are cleared away. Think in this way I have completely purified all of the obscurations of body, speech, and mind of myself and beings. Oh, yes, and then so the next point is to recite the 100-syllable mantra. This is to purify any mistakes that we've made from beginning the practice until now. Om Padma Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Pema Sattva Teno Patishta Jidome Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Subshokayo Me Bhava Anurato Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sarva Karma Shutsa Me Sitsanshiyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Padma Mame Mutsa Padma Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahom. Sumrebek. So Geshe says we should do 3 times ideally. Don't be cheap, Kadrapi said. Om Padma Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Padma Sattva Teno Patita Jido Meba Sutokayo Mebawa Subshokayo Mebawa Anurato Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sarva Karma Shutsa Me Sisanshiyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Penma Mame Mutsa Penma Bhava Mahasame Sato Ahum Pe Om Padma Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Pema Sattva Teno Patisha Jirume Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Suchokayo Me Bhava Anurato Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sarva Karma Sutsa Me Sitsanshiyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Penma Mame Mutsa Penma Bhava Mahasame Sattva Ahum Pe. So now the dedication. Ditsun leje dajem bunje ji lo de gewe chuzu kunde za je jo geza gebe za jengin shiba zhebe zida zejoji punzo gele jebe raji be gende jazi nobu gezenje mine zizo lana jemayi pende deba bulu jojoji gyaje nizin geme jenyambo de gebe munzo dazine deje nawa dawe gezenje iche nanda zebe nyenjoji dona jewe chewa gejeji reme nyeje jesu zunwedu konje wanshu zunju gezaje beme de la nido senjoroji saje gewe meju tuje du shodu gunda mada gozoje zeje gele yange dawe dar pege gezen dawe jaje meloji mowa. So we'll do some brief dedications. Jiangzhu Zemzhu Rinpoche Maje Panam Jejoji Chewa Nyamba Meba Yang Gone Gondo Pewa Sho Korwe Jinkam De Pendan Dewa Malu Jongwe Ne Chenre Ziwan Tenzin Gyatso Yi Shape Site Bardu Tengyo. So through the merits that myself and others have collected, may all of the problems and suffering that we can see so clearly with our eyes in this realm, the wars, conflicts, and diseases troubling the world, may this be completely purified. And indeed, may all of the problems and difficulties, also those that we cannot see, be completely purified through the power of these merits. And through the power of these prayers, through these being actualized, may all of the four elements come into harmony and a state of balance be achieved. May any sort of natural disasters and so forth be pacified. And through all beings having healthy bodies and happy minds, may the sun of happiness shine on all types of beings without discrimination. So thanks. We'll end the session there. Oh, Jesus. Yeah. So then, yes. So Geshe said that ends this session. Then slowly we'll come to some other steps, some other points, and also there's going to be sessions with other people today as well. So I think from 1 to 2:30, Dave will lead the first session this afternoon, and then so that's how it will go all 3 days. Geshe will lead the morning session, and then we'll have Dave, Annie, and Paula each leading an afternoon session. Thanks so much, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Hello, hello. Hi, Pavi. Hello in Finland. Still on mute. We can come off mute now.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Hi.
Yes. Hi. Sorry,
Hi.
I'm not able to follow this your midday. It's
Oh,
evening for
it'd be
us.
late
So
for you. Yes.
yeah,
It'd be
and
late for
I
us.
did wake up very early this morning to see His
Uh-huh.
Holiness. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for us, we watched him in our yesterday evening. Yeah.
yes, and
Yeah.
we had in early morning for 4
Very
a.m.
early. Oy,
Oh,
yeah.
But it was lovely. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. So
Okay.
see you tomorrow.
See
Okay.
you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Enjoy.
Bye.
Enjoy.
Bye. Yep.
Yeah.
Bye. Yeah, so this afternoon, well, we'll see each other at 1:30. Well,
1 o'clock.
it's 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. Right. Okay.
Hi, Annie.
Hey, Manoshi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
How's your mom?
She's getting better, thankfully. Yes. It's been a long journey.
Yeah.
I have to go visit her. I'm going to miss the afternoon session, so I'm going to have to go visit her now. Yeah.
Okay. Good
Yeah.
to see you.
But thank you. Thanks for everything. Agreeing to lead the session and all that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm not as nervous today, which is a good sign.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be lovely. I hope
Indeed.
I'll be able to come on and
Indeed.
see how it
Yeah.
goes.
I was like had this arc of nerves, and then now
Good.
I understand. I would feel the same, I'm sure. Except I think you're much more capable than I am, so it'll be fine.
no. I think it's the willingness to jump in.
Yes, that's what it is. Yep.
Yeah.
And then once you get in, it's okay, but it's just like,
It's very good. It's very good.
Try.
Well, I will come back for the
Yep.
lunch break and see you
Yes.
shortly. Okay,
Yes,
all right.
enjoy all your everybody
Thank
enjoy
you.
your lunches, and
Yes.
we'll see you.
Bye.
Dave
Sign
will be
off for
there
now.
for sure afterwards.
Yep. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.